Hello everyone, I just got a new YouTube video for you here. I'm going to be setting up a new way to turn on my desktop using my Raspberry Pi. Now you could do this with Wake on LAN, I do currently have that set up, but there are a few issues with it, and that is if you try to turn on your computer after it was fully powered down or it has been put into a partially shut down state with Windows, or maybe it's a full shutdown, I can't remember, it's one of the two, then actually using Wake on LAN doesn't end up working. So what I'm going to be building today is actually creating a way to wake it up using a power button, but coming as a digital power out from my Raspberry Pi. So that's what we'll run through today, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so some of the items that we're going to be working with today, and I'll make sure I'll put some links in the description as well as for where you can buy these things, are going to be some ribbon cable. This one we've got a 3-cord ribbon cable. I've also got a couple of headers that I'm going to be using to then make the logic that we need to actually turn on the computer. We've also got this this relay module that we're going to be using to actually turn on the computer from a Raspberry Pi. This right here is a power and ground. We'll talk about that more later. We've got a couple of risers from our original ATX board that we're going to be using, and then also a couple of screws from the original ATX board that we had set up as well. And then we're going to be doing all of that out of the front headers to create the power signal. I know this isn't a great view, I'll post up a picture right here. And then we also have the Raspberry Pi, which is going to be then used to actually turn on the computer. So I know that this view is not going to be great, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing. So I'm going to take this little riser guy right here, and I've got an extra hole that happens to be right here that spins and threads into. So I'm going to put that there, and then to give you an idea of what we're actually going to be doing, so here we've got this relay that we're going to then make sure that we're not touching any of the ground metal because we don't want it to come in contact with any of the other actual components of the computer. But we're going to put that riser up, and we're going to thread in one of these screws that then connects into that riser, and there we go. And then so that will give you guys an idea of what we are looking at as far as how we're going to put all this together. So I still want my original power switch to be able to turn on my computer. So what I'm going to do is, now that we've got all of the points soldered on, I'm going to pass this over and connect it to this new connection point that we created. And now that we've got that, we should be good to go. Now we'll need to create a new connection that goes from here. Let me make that a little bit clearer. It goes from here and is going to need to connect to the original power switch over here. And to do that, we're going to use these headers to be able to give us exactly what we need. So we're going to have a 2-pin header here, and we're going to create our own using some wire, some flat ribbon wire, and we're going to create a jumper cable between the front header and our new grounded power. Now we know that we're going to need 2 wires to create our new jumper, and since these are 3, which we do need 3 for another part of this project, but I only need 2 to create this new jumper wire, we're going to pull one of those wires off. And then we're going to create the connections on the ends of these guys that'll eventually go into these headers. And we'll be creating our new header for us. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to do the first one here. And to do that, I'm going to pull these apart a little bit. These are 24 gauge American gauge wire. And I'm just going to cut off a little bit off the top here for each one of these. And I'm going to do it one at a time, so that way it makes things a little bit easier to work with. Twist these guys a little bit, And then I need to actually thread this in so that way it goes into the little body casing here. There we go. Now the insulated is crimped down, the actual wire is crimped down, and if we give a little bit of a tug, it's not coming out. So that's the first part of us, and we need to do it for the other 4 sections of this wire. All right, and we are done. So don't judge me too hard, guys. This is the first time I've ever done this, but also it was a lot easier to do off camera than it was on camera. So the last thing we need to do is check with our multimeter and check to make sure that we've got some solid connections before connecting these things. So I've got this set back up on my buzzer mode, and I'm just gonna touch both ends to make sure that I've got a good connection between both ends. Good connection there. And on the other side, good connection there as well. All right, so we are done, our connections are made. The last thing we need to do is actually connect these into this guy here. And we'll do that now. It is a bit tougher to thread these in than I expect them to be. So it kind of makes me wonder what I'm doing wrong here. I threaded that one in and I heard a click, so that must be good. I've got to get the other one in still. All right, so I got one in with a click. I'm gonna take this one offline and see if I can figure out how to get it in as well. All right, that was a little bit harder than I thought, but I eventually got it in. And then one final test to make sure. So I've got exposed wires here to test. Good there. Good there. All right, we have got a good connection. Now we will actually connect these jumper wires. All right, now that we've got our final jumper wire created, we're gonna connect it to our original power pin. A little more loose than I would like it to be, but we'll give it a shot. All right, we've got our jumper connection made. So just to test this out, I'm gonna plug in the computer and see if the power button still works. All right, and then just to make sure everything works, I've got to plug it back in. Just the power button connected to the front header, and I'm gonna click it, see if it comes on. Sure does, we have got power. All right, so step 1 complete. All right, so we've got the final connections made. Got that guy hooked up there, and that guy goes out of the case out here into these little 3 pins here. And then these 3 pins are gonna go and connect to the Raspberry Pi to control the relay. Okay, so it took me a little bit of time to figure out what was going on. I did have the connections wrong, and I finally just figured it out. So it's actually the middle one that's the common, and the top one right here is the nominally open, and this is the nominally closed. So when you see the red light turn on, you should hear the ring, there it goes. And when the red light turns off, the beeping stops. Similarly, if the red light's on, nothing. And now getting a ring. So it turns out the middle is actually the common. And now we can use that to fix the switch. Perfect, and now for the final result. We've got everything switched and set up. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit that button to turn it on with the Raspberry Pi. And just like that, we now have a digital switch that'll turn on the desktop. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. There's also a little bit of code that's going to go into this for what you actually need to run on your Raspberry Pi to get the switch to turn on and then back off. Very simple, only maybe 10 or 20 lines, and it'll all run within the shell. So thank you again for watching, and please thumbs up if you enjoyed. Bye.